Thank you. The actively ignoring. Something I do with my son regularly. With a teenager, he's having like 100 chicken pecking at the back of your head constantly with demands. So actively ignoring was a very good section of the guide. Of the two, I'm Carla Thomas, and I've been involved in the work with child and family for a very long time, probably about 2000 actually, because I was one of the pilots in authority at the time with Kingston of some of the kind of assessment tools. But the reason why I'm here is because with Fiona, since April 2014, we've been involved in a big project with Surrey County Council in terms of the training of their ASYE, the Assisted and Supported Year in Employment social workers. And they've been put through a very intensive program, quite unique actually, because I work for a number as a freelance worker, but also for one of the local authority, and it is an incredibly unique kind of program. And it covers a 12-month period, and the practitioners, the social workers, are put through 15 days worth of intensive training and program. They need to do some homework in between, so that there are some practice requirements that they need to do in between training days. We keep an eye on who completes, who doesn't complete. They will get certification at the end of their completion work. And we monitor constantly their process, and Fiona will say a little bit more about how we support them in between training days with a coaching program that actually kind of sees them through the application in practice of some of the theoretical knowledge that we kind of distribute and supply within the training. So she'll say a little bit more about that. Oh, sorry, where's the... Oh, here we go. Sorry. Done it now, haven't I? There you go. There you go. The 15 days are broken down in a series of training sessions. They have a 3-day training over a period of a couple of months, 3 months, but a bit less, in assessing parenting in the life of children, which involves them covering the home inventory assessment tool as well as the family pack of questionnaires and scales. They do 2 days on neglect, one focusing particularly on the impact on children and young people throughout the course of their developmental stages. And with the neglect course, we implement and we use a lot of the research from the Department of Education and the neglect material, which was published by the DFE, and we update constantly because, of course, in the last few years there's been loads of research from the NSPCC, from government, etc., in relation to neglect, so we make sure that they are equipped with up-to-date research to be able actually to justify some of the decision making that they might be making as well. We have a 2-day in child protection and decision making, the safeguarding assessment and analysis framework training. They do a 3-day or more complex tool of assessing families, and 5 days on the intervention module that you've seen there. It's been actually quite refreshing. We're about to start our 3rd program, and we started off with 20. The second program we had another 20, and this year we have 40 social workers. So it'll be quite a big challenge, but we kind of divided the work up amongst a few of us. But it's been really refreshing to see our newly qualified social worker, fresh out of university, rabbits in the headlights a little bit really, with loads and wealth of theoretical knowledge, are actually absorbing and using tools as a way of informing and backing up their professional judgment and having something substantial that will help them say, well, it's not just what I think, I have a validated, reliable tool that also kind of backs up my professional judgment. And with the intervention module, is about reclaiming social work. You know, as social workers, you're not just a commissioner of services. How do you engage with family? When you go and talk to family, what do you do? And actually gives them a structure and give them some sort of, structure really to work within, and some tools to be able actually to apply and measure what it is that they do. So it's been really a pleasure to see them kind of embrace and gain confidence and develop really. and we've had some champions within the group that have actually come back from court to say, we've used some of these tools, and we were actually asked in court to back up our judgment, and it wasn't just what we said. We were actually able to demonstrate that we used something that actually gave reliability and validity and help us triangulate that information. So it's not just what we say, is backed up by other kind of evidence-based stuff, which is really, really helpful. Okay.
Shall I go on to my bit?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Is it working all right?
I'd just say it's lovely to see Surrey here. And my little bit is just talking about the coaching sessions, because I think it was really enlightened of Surrey to be thinking about not just about training, but how you embed that, how it makes a difference, and to help the trainees and to be regularly coming for the 8 half-day coaching or refresher sessions, which we spread out throughout the programme, didn't we, Carla? And trying to help the trainees make sense of what they'd learned, what they were thinking about on that day, and helping it embed it into their practice. And James and I were just talking just before we started that it's interesting when you're coaching is that sometimes people go on a roll through the year and they need help to come back to what they might have been thinking about 6 months ago, so that it's not lost as they go on with the momentum of the training programme. So I think the coaching has been helpful for that. And I just wanted to sort of give you a flavour of how we went about it, really. And we did it in lots of different ways. I did the coaching for all the first year, and then my colleague Simon and myself did the second year, and we're going to divide up the coaching for this new group. And sometimes we met as a whole group, and we divided them, so there were about 6 or 7 in each of the groups. And I think it's very important that people can learn from each other and with each other and support each other, and we saw a lot of that during the year. And we might have done things like they might have done the home assessment, and then one of them might have been very concerned about how you actually score it. So they brought it in, and we did that as a group activity, and I think that's very powerful because it actually helped the others who might have thought, haven't quite done one yet, but actually were encouraged by somebody who did that. We spent a lot of time thinking about communicating with children, how you make sure that the voice of the child is heard and what those techniques might be. And the intervention resources were wonderful for that. The feedback, Anand, from the coaching sessions was that trainees loved the scripts. It helped them get going. It helped them think about, how might I introduce this? So even if they then put their own words, their own tone of how they were doing that, it got them started. Because often people were quite nervous about how to introduce different topics. How do I go about it? And the intervention resources were wonderful for that. We spent quite often in the group sessions, trainees presented a case, and we thought about what assessment tools people might use, and when we went further on in the year, which of the intervention resources that Anand's just outlined for you they might draw on, and we could practice them again within the coaching sessions. Then people went out and used them, and then came back and reported on that, and I think that's a very powerful learning experience. It embeds it into their training. We also, at the request of supervisors, because coaching isn't just about the coaches, it's also about a relationship between the coaches, the supervisors and the trainees. And throughout the year we were in contact with the supervisors of the trainees, so that at various points the supervisors asked myself, and I know they've asked Simon, to actually do some one-to-one work with some of the trainees. Some of that was around a report that they'd written. Supervisors wanted us to go over helping trainees draw up a genogram, because not everybody was very confident about that, and also how you might use it. It's not just doing the genogram. How can you use that in a constructive way? So we did quite a lot of one-to-one support and had individual appointments with people. I think the other thing with coaching is that it helps pick up anxieties with the trainees. We help them. They spent quite a lot of time saying, well, what do we say? How do we introduce that? the resources were very helpful for that, but also thinking about how they could use the wonderful questioning techniques that are part of the family assessment resource, reminding of them of that throughout the year, helping them to think about how to respond to difficult situations. We weren't replacing supervision. Well, actually, Simon and I spent quite a lot of time saying to trainees, you need to go back to your supervisor and talk this through. They would want to know about that. Sometimes trainees got very worried about I should be able to do this. And actually, the coaching could help support them with that, because everybody's got to start. We've always got to have a beginning. There were times when they brought examples of unintentionally comic situations. There was, somebody who set up a family assessment session and emphasised that he wanted it to be quite a relaxing experience, and the whole family arrived in their onesies when they went into the room, which was a bit of a challenge, especially father in his tiger print onesie, which was not quite what the poor person expected. And then there are other occasions when actually there's deliberately intimidating behaviour. One trainee who had 3 Alsatians let out in the middle of a session when she was doing a strengths and difficulties questionnaire. And how might you deal with that? How might you respond to that? So there were a lot of individual work that we actually did as well. Sometimes there was unexpected events. Simon and I have both done live coaching. There was a time when a trainee was going to attend a strategy meeting and could work through some of the thoughts before they went to the meeting and then come back and report. I had a trainee who did a case presentation to the group, and the father who she was actually talking about in the case presentation arrived in reception, demanding that he saw her, and she went out, dealt with something, came back and reported. So it was just an interesting process with that. And I think the other thing that happened as we went on through the year is that trainees got confidence in bringing in their own materials, because I think when you do coaching, it's not just about what I'm giving them, but also what they can bring for the whole group and for me. About 3 weeks ago, one of the first years emailed me because she had found a lovely website that was lovely materials for working with children, and she thought I'd be interested for my own practice and the team that I manage. And she was right. It was a lovely website. And it just made me think that, part of when you're doing the coaching is that you're involved in a journey, and you're alongside new social workers, trainees, ASYE, and you're along with them with that journey right through till they become fully fledged professional colleagues, and that's a privilege. Thank you.